They're trying to save for the next generation's education. They're trying to save for their own retirement. In some cases, they're looking after an aging parent. Gas prices are hitting them. And one of the things that we've seen in our economy is that the burdens and benefits of this new global economy are not being spread evenly across the board. And that's why, as the next president, one of my first priorities is to make sure that we institute some fairness in the system. We institute it in our tax code.
All right.
We institute it with respect to making sure that Social Security is preserved. We institute it in giving working people an opportunity to save where they don't have it right now. And we make sure that, as Chris said, and I think Chris made an excellent point, that college education is simply too expensive.
So
at this
give us a
point.
number, Senator Obama. At what number would you tell us that there's lower taxes, and what number people can afford higher taxes?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the
income.
the
$200,000 a year, $150,000.
Well, as I said before, I would roll back the Bush tax cuts for those making over $250,000. In some cases, I'd like to see lower taxes. But when I was in the state legislature, one of the things that I introduced was a state earned income tax credit that provided millions of dollars of tax breaks to folks who can least afford it. And keep in mind, my starting point is not how do I tax people. My starting point is, are we spending the money that we have wisely, which we're not always doing. And if you're a progressive, you should be just as concerned by this huge spike in earmarks that have been taking place under the Bush administration as any so-called fiscal conservative is.
What's a rich person, Senator Edwards?
Well, I don't know if I know what a rich person is. What I do for my health care plan is roll back the tax cuts for people who make over $200,000 a year. So $200,000 is the figure I use. But I want to go to a piece of this question that you asked, which is you talked about saving for your kids to be able to go to college, and we really haven't talked about that tonight. Just a quick idea. College for everyone is something we've actually, Elizabeth and I, put in place in eastern North Carolina, in a small community in eastern North Carolina. And the idea is really simple. The idea is if a kid graduates from high school, qualified to be in college, and they commit to work when they're there, at least 10 hours a week, their tuition and books are paid for. And the idea is we want to make it simple for kids to go to college. They have to work for it. We don't just give it to them. And then on top of that, so many young people are faced with this crushing burden of debt when they graduate from college. I think it's something we shouldn't just be doing. We've done this privately in this small area of eastern North Carolina, but it's something we ought to be doing all across this country. College for everyone.
Thank you, Senator. Jennifer, go ahead.
This is Gregory Kamen, and Gregory, you live in Bedford, and you used to own a hair salon. I'm going to reach around you and have you ask your question.
Okay. Our country's now running huge federal deficits again. I'm wondering, one, do the candidates have a problem with that? And if they do, what policies would they pursue if they became president to alleviate that problem? And if you could be somewhat specific, would you be looking to the income side, and what would those policies be? Or would you be looking to the spending side and talk a little bit about those policies? Thank you.
Governor Richardson.
Well, I'm a governor. I have balanced 5 budgets. I have to as a governor. In the Clinton administration, I want to thank the senator for her nice words. We had a balanced budget and created 20 million jobs. This is what I would do. $100 million from the war in Iraq spent on domestic needs. Number 2, I am for a constitutional amendment to balance the budget, a line item veto, and pay-as-you-go policies. I would get rid of the close to $30 billion in earmarks that the Congress has. I would also get rid of corporate welfare, close to $70 billion. For instance, if you're a company, you get a tax credit, the runaway tax credit, to take jobs overseas. I would also find ways to let insurance companies have cost controls, strong cost controls, to reduce the deficit. I would also take other steps and say that it is critically important that we also grow the economy. I'm a pro-growth Democrat. I believe if we grow the economy, for instance, the 2 daughters of the young man, the young father over there, if we grow the economy 1.8% instead of the 1.3, the solvency of Social Security in the year 2045 would be resolved. And I would be a president who would give incentives to companies that bring jobs over the prevailing wage, rural tax credits,
Thank you.
ways that we help the economy grow in the technology sector.
Thank you, Governor. Congressman Kucinich, you know the Republicans will say what they're hearing by and large tonight is more Democrats suggesting raise taxes, raise spending, more of the same, big tax, big spending party. What do you say to them?
I'm saying that we should not be borrowing money from China to run a war in Iraq. We need to change our spending policies in many ways. First of all, stop war. Most of the people on this stage voted consistently to fund a war we should have never gotten in the first place. Change our trade laws. We need to get out of NAFTA and the WTO and go back to bilateral trade conditioned on workers' rights, human rights, and the environment, and stop driving an $800 billion trade deficit. We need to have health care for all Americans in a not-for-profit health care system. That's going to help the gentleman with his beauty salon and the small business. When you have a chance to have health care at a fraction of what you're paying now and everything's covered. And then finally, environment. I say we can create millions of new jobs with a new WGA, inspiring technologies for wind and solar and insulation on a domestic basis. We can create new wealth. I want to create new wealth, and I want to stop wasting the money where we're wasting it or losing the wealth in our trade policy.